the first thing I'd like to ask, if this thing, this idea of having one single document where we pull things is working okay for you.
Yeah, definitely. It works
Great.
well.
Fantastic. And as you said, you contributed there, and there are very interesting things that would like to point out that you've noticed in the course of our brief sessions. So let me share. I need. Okay, let me see. There. Okay. Now, just a bit. I don't know where I have it. There, I think. Yeah. So here are your contributions to the different stages that we included in this action plan. And the first thing we noticed is that you noticed that mentees not always come with a definite goal in mind. That mentees have a certain idea of what they would like to be mentored in, and this needs to, some work, some refining to do to make this initial perceived needs into an attainable need that can be the focus of the mentoring. So this is something that you very explicitly said you noticed.
I would say that Graham is becoming more diagnostic in his thinking. As time goes by, we can notice this. At the beginning, it was just, I have the feeling, this vagueness he mentions. And now he's he's drawing conclusions from his own thinking, and that also helps.
And another thing that we noticed, that you noticed, or that it's implied, that it's through the discussion that you said having to think more clearly about them was a good exercise. Now, what do you think favored this thinking about them? Is it something you did? It is something that happened during our meetings? Could you pinpoint anything in particular that favored this or that helped this thinking more clearly?
I think you suggested a survey.
Okay, I was thinking not about the outcome. I was thinking about refining the goal, because the outcome, the survey is an end product, but the survey responds to something, responds to a need that you were able to define more clearly. And how did that defining happen?
It came out from the discussion, really. I think we had the discussion about what it was exactly that I wanted, because it wasn't clear. And I think one thing led naturally to another, because when you want information, or I think it was obvious that what I needed was to know more from teacher educators. So I needed input from teacher educators. And that then was clearly, how do you get that? Well, you get that from either talking or asking questions to them. So the survey was the obvious output of the need for information.
I recall a moment last meeting that we thought it could have been a good trigger. I don't know whether you agree or not. Sylvia at one point gave a personal account of her experience as a teacher educator in British Council
Oh, yeah,
initiatives.
that's
Okay.
right.
And I had the impression that somehow that sparked, I mean, your interest in a very particular way, that somehow that was what you were looking for. But that is just one personal account. To what extent can that be generalized is a big question, isn't it?
Yes, it's always a question, but I think that's the thing, really. You can never know what everybody thinks or feels.
Of course.
You have to kind of take a sample.
Especially working in different contexts. Of course, this is just one context, one person. Probably the idea of the survey might be to see to what extent this is common ground among teacher educators.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, especially as we have access to teacher educators from various different regions and parts of the world, working in lots of different contexts, which is good.
Okay. So this is part of the mentor's role, to sort of unravel all these initial vagueness. In this case, we ask questions, but also this personal account that Sylvia gave was probably very, very useful in helping to make your goal a little bit more attainable, more precise. And then obviously with an outcome that is the survey. Basically, then the survey is, how can I get more people to share personal accounts so that I can see the common elements and the common ground beneath those accounts, right? So that will be probably the rationale, the idea behind the survey, which will shed light into their own needs in turn and the understanding of those needs. So that was our first task, to somehow do, ask, eventually plead to get to this more attainable role. So this will, take you back to what you really want to know, which was rather vague in the beginning, but sounded more concrete and more attainable later.
Sylvia, I have also noticed that Graham noticed that what we meant to do was that he would own his goal. He actually said, I was encouraged to define what I wanted. And I feel that, this idea of agency, Graham defined what he wanted. And it's not that we came up with that definition. So the method, I would like to know if Graham has identified what kind of method or model you feel we have been using.
Oh, I don't know.
How would you describe the style of mentoring we used in these in the previous meetings?
Almost like eliciting, basically.
Okay.
Encouraging, as you said, Sylvia, encouraging ownership of the ideas, etc., and eliciting based on what you think it is that I need, but not restricting me.
I also noticed the use of some words, some interesting words. Graham used vague and then the word specific, the word general, and then actionable, and the word understand, and later design, analyze, and use findings. I think that already in the language he chose to use to show that before and say before we started and now, Graham is already showing this diagnostic role he has taken, and also becoming a better self-analyst, more precise, more method-driven. That's what we have noticed, Graham. Have you noticed this as well? This is what we read through when we read your reflection.
Yeah, definitely related to this. I think a lot of it comes down to having to make decisions. Originally, when it was just something that I was trying to define, when I volunteered, this was what I would like to be mentored on. It wasn't necessary to be very granular, if you like. But then when it comes to the actual mentoring sessions, it becomes more of a need to reflect more about exactly what I want. And then, as you encourage me to do so, to start to think of something that we could develop further.
Thank you.
So this is the evidence we take, your own words, to see the processes, to try to see the processes behind and how these inform us as mentors on the following steps, because this plan is absolutely open and collaborative.
Yeah.
So it's not preset. It cannot be, because we need to see what's going on in each of these sessions. So back to the outcome. We agreed then that you proposed a survey, and we thought that this might be a good instrument to use. So that's why I shared a collaborative document to pull ideas for this survey, but not to actually design the survey, but what it is that we need to consider before the survey is designed. So let me
click on the tab.
Yeah, but I cannot read the tab. Yeah. So these are some of the questions that one might ask oneself when faced with the task of designing the survey. So who's the survey for? How will the intended recipients access the survey? What topics will the survey cover? Will the topics be given? Will the triggers be very open? What format will it take? And what criteria will the survey designer use to analyze the findings? That is to say, to inform you about what you really want to know. These are just the first questions off the top of our heads, but you probably have others that you come up with before actually drafting the survey. What do you think of these, and in what ways can these questions help?
Yeah, I think that the kind of, as you said, the initial things you need to think about before drafting the survey, really, to make sure that you don't go off on the wrong foot. So yeah, I think number 2 is where the meat is, if you like. The intended recipients, I think, is clear. So teacher educators that are part of the community that the British Council has. Number 2, I'll come back to. Number 3, the format. What format? It needs to be something quite easy to complete that doesn't take someone a lot of time to do, because people are less likely to complete something that is very long. So a one-page survey, I think, with maybe 6 questions maximum. What criteria? That depends on number 2, I suppose. And then number 2, I think this is where the difficulty comes in trying to define what questions I need, because it's going to be a short survey. You don't want to restrict yourself to very specific questions. And I think the idea is to think of questions that are, or for topics that would lead to open-ended, and so an open-ended questions that would lead to discovering perhaps things that otherwise I wouldn't have known. So it's very general, but it has to be specific enough to be it can't be just answered by a generalization. So a general open-ended question that would enable or would prompt teacher educator to write something quite specific.
Well, what you
So
said
that's
just remind me, it's kind of catch-22, you know.
exactly
The challenge of obtaining information that you haven't thought about, because that's the whole point, to
yeah
become more aware by using or by sharing or by including topics that you select. So if you select them, how is it possible then that they can trigger information that you had not thought about in the first place? So that's a very difficult
Yeah.
balance to achieve.
And it's also because I haven't really thought very much about exactly what information I want, because that wasn't as clear. So the obvious way to approach it would be to start off by identifying, keeping it anonymous. So having a survey which is anonymous, you're more likely to get an honest and critical answer from something that's anonymous. And in this survey, you don't really want to identify the person completing the survey. You want to have them. If you want them to be critical, then I think it's better that they feel that they're not going to be they're not identified, so they won't have any kind of comeback from saying something that perhaps isn't pleasant or is critical. But I think that's important.
You asked me a question the other day, which I was not expecting, when you said, but what is it that the British Council is not giving you? And I feel that this is what you're looking for. This is information you are really after, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's what is typical from a certain type of questionnaire is that you get someone responding to what they think you want to hear. And although it's always good to hear from people about the things that you're doing well or that you want, that they're happy about, I think it's more difficult to get people to to kind of say what they're not happy about, but not in a negative way as well. So this is also a problem. You want to be able to receive information that you can action, not just something, for example, like a typical would be, I'm not being paid enough.
Mhm. Well,
And there are a lot. It
these are
has to be. it, it's a common complaint from a lot of people that they're not being, especially in education, that they're not being paid for the amount of time and effort that and experience that they have, that they're putting into something. But I think whereas it has, what I'm looking for perhaps is for things that we can realistically action given constraints,
Yeah,
and not the
the
usual suspects as well.
the CPD within the, I mean, as a CPD development program, I mean, we're not talking about money. we were talking about your growth as a teacher educator within our staff, and as a freelance teacher educator that works for the British Council. That then, I mean, the context needs to be provided clearly. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
couple of questions. One that has to do with, well, first thing is that people in certain circles, educated circles, instead of being very outwardly critical, they contribute something that they suggest. And obviously the suggestion already tells you that something's not, they are not satisfied with a particular aspect, but they would not voice it as criticism, but rather a suggestion, a contribution of what could be done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's one thing. And the other
So-
thing is about, yeah, sorry.
Sorry for interrupting, but so that's interesting to think about that in the analysis.
Mhm. That's why I was saying that maybe when they contribute to improvements, what they're actually looking at is it's not working. Instead of saying, well, what is it that you're not satisfied about? Like, what would you like to change? Sounds something like inviting suggestions and contributions, for example. So you still get the
Yeah.
criticism,
Yes.
which they might not give openly.
Yes. Good
Mhm.
point.
And the other question I have is about identifying teacher educators who respond to the survey. I mean, there will be a mail address, wouldn't it? So how possible is it not to be identified?
I think you can make it anonymous. You don't have to. You could make it a link that is only given to a certain group of people,
Mhm.
and those people don't have to log in to be able to respond to the survey.
Mhm. Great. Okay. And the other thing is, would it be interesting to have some information about the recipients, the respondents, such as experience, for example, or
Yeah,
context?
definitely. That's
Because that
what I
was-
think you'd start with. It's like,
Okay. Because then that might shed some light
Yeah.
and tailor make decisions according to different groups or
definitely,
different
if you're
situations.
going to analyze it, then you want to know some information about the person responding.
I have a question, Graham, because sometimes when you complete surveys of a sort, you would like to know who's going to read the report, the analysis and the report. Will this be told to the survey, to the teachers or to the teacher educators who will be surveyed?
I think, again, these are all great questions, but in the first instance, it's not something that I think that I was thinking about making public. It was
What
more
about-
about a survey that would inform my own knowledge of what teacher educators
Right.
thought and what might be changed. But I don't think it would be, in the first instance, I don't think it would be beneficial to kind of do anything else with that,
Okay.
the information.
So that will be mentioning probably the purpose of the survey, what it is for.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Well, many surveys contain this at the beginning. Short.
I'm really
just-
sorry, but I can't stay much longer today, unfortunately.
That will be all right.
So-
We're about to finish anyway. My
Okay.
last question has to do with piloting.
Yeah.
Have you thought of piloting a survey? To give you, I mean, before you actually use it at large, so that you may detect something and still work on it a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a very good idea to select a few
Mhm.
People who could do it, to get, rather than to complete the survey, but to analyze the actual
Mhm.
mechanics of the questions. Exactly.
Okay,
Definitely,
great.
that's a good idea.
Great.
Mhm.
Great.
Wait, thank you, Graham, for this. We're going to continue analyzing and keep in touch and probably wrap it up one final meeting for this, because as we
Yeah.
said, we are not going to actually write the survey.
No, just sort of talk through.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.